So, um, let's dive into this intriguing topic. Saudi Arabia channeling, like almost all of its fresh water into the
Yeah.
desert. You know, it's wild how a country with such limited water reserves manages this huge flow into barren lands.
Right. It's like they're intentionally transforming an arid landscape into something that's almost counterintuitive. How do you think that plays out, really?
Well, the idea is pretty fascinating. Essentially, Saudi Arabia is using its scarce fresh water to irrigate deserts, which might sound
Yep,
paradoxical at
exactly.
first. But when you look closer, there's a strategic twist here, aimed at economic, environmental, and political factors.
Interesting. So, could this be driven by a need for increased agricultural production, or maybe a desire to create more habitable land?
Exactly. It's like a gamble. On one hand, they're attempting to boost domestic food production and perhaps create an environment that supports uh, even tourism or habitat development. On the other, it raises serious sustainability questions. It's almost
Yes.
like pouring money down the drain if you're not getting a sustainable return on that effort.
But isn't there a certain irony in using a resource as precious as water to essentially flood deserts that historically can't sustain that kind of moisture?
Absolutely, it's counterintuitive. This whole approach is like trying to re-engineer nature, which naturally adapts to aridity. There's the potential upside of green tech and developing farming methods that could work in dry conditions, but it's risky.
Right,
I
yeah.
mean, water is just so valuable in that region, and directing nearly all of it to the desert could be seen as overambitious.
That makes sense. It kind of challenges conventional wisdom about water conservation, doesn't it? I mean, with the global water crisis, you'd expect any excess water to be managed differently, right?
Hmm. And there's also a public dimension to it. These visuals that you see, like in the video, are quite stark. The title itself, "That's Why Saudi Arabia Pours Almost All of Its Fresh Water into the Desert," grabs
Yep,
your
exactly.
attention immediately. It forces you to rethink what proper resource allocation means in such a challenging environment.
True, true. But can we really say it's just mismanagement? Or could it be a necessary, albeit temporary tactic, given the country's specific context and ambitions?
Good question. There's certainly room for debate. On one hand, critics argue that such massive water diversion might exacerbate a regional water crisis.
I see.
Others suggest it's a bold, if somewhat desperate, push towards agricultural independence and diversification of the economy.
It almost seems like a high-stakes balancing act. Though I have to wonder, do we know if any significant progress comes out of these expansive desert irrigation projects?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? There's evidence that after years of pouring water in, some areas show unexpected transformations, like the emergence of vegetation and microclimates that were rare before.
Right, yeah.
But the counterpoint is that the water input far exceeds what's naturally sustainable, leaving you with potential long-term environmental drawbacks.
It reminds me of those engineered solutions where you force nature to cooperate, but then Mother Nature fights back eventually. Does that resonate with what you're seeing here?
Exactly, exactly. It's like saying, let's fix a broken system by overcompensating. And sometimes that leads to
Yep, I get
instability
that.
later. The idea is innovative on paper, but the desert isn't exactly known for bountiful yields when you alter its natural state so drastically.
Right. And really, if you view the desert as having its own intrinsic value, albeit not immediately obvious in economic terms, then diverting almost all fresh water from more vital uses could be seen as short-sighted, no?
I can see that perspective. There's a risk that the strategy is too
Yes.
aggressive. But then again, consider that Saudi Arabia has, for decades, been transforming desert spaces with innovative, large-scale engineering projects. This is just a continuation of that trend, albeit with much higher stakes given the current global water crisis.
That's true. It's like the ultimate test case for intense environmental engineering. Though I do wonder if this process might reveal some unexpected benefits in, say, soil restoration or microclimate development.
Possibly, but it's like an experiment in extremes. One analogy, if you can imagine, is trying to create an oasis by overwatering a pot. Sure, you might get a bloom initially, but eventually the plant might drown. The balance is delicate.
Yeah, exactly. But can we really compare a desert-scale project to a pot? I mean, the scale is so different that unpredictable factors come into play.
Fair point. The scale here is astronomical. We're talking billions of tons of water over vast
Absolutely,
terrains.
yep.
So while analogies help, they can oversimplify the real-world risks and rewards of such grand designs.
And then there's the political and economic dimension, right? A lot of these projects aren't just about transforming land. They're also about national pride and demonstrating technological prowess on the international stage.
Exactly. It's as if the desert becomes a canvas for showcasing state-of-the-art capabilities.
Yes.
But that also means the eyes of the world are on them, and any misstep could raise alarms about, long-term sustainability and viability.
I totally agree. There's also that curious contrast, spending huge resources on something that's visually stunning, yet scientifically and ecologically debatable.
Right, exactly. And when you look at the broader picture, it's not just about Saudi Arabia, it's about the global water crisis. The video even ties into discussions you might have seen on other channels about our water predicament worldwide and how innovative, yet sometimes risky, strategies are being tested everywhere.
Yes, exactly. That's a great point. It makes you think, are these projects the exception or the beginning of a trend where extreme measures become the norm?
That's what makes it so compelling. There's no one-size-fits-all answer here. It's the clash of necessity versus conservation.
Right,
and
definitely.
then you have to ask, is it practical or is it a spectacular but unsustainable stunt?
I'd say the debate really comes down to long-term impact versus short-term gain. If we invest almost all fresh water into the desert and see limited agricultural return, does that undermine future water security?
For sure, it's a delicate balance. On one side, you're trying to harness every drop to foster economic change. On the other, you risk depleting a resource that's literally the lifeblood of the region.
Yeah.
And the environmental ramifications like soil salinization and loss of biodiversity could be severe.
It's almost as if the desert is being used as a giant experimental lab, and the outcomes are still very much a toss-up.
Exactly, you hit the nail on the head. It's a high-risk experiment with big potential payoffs and equally big dangers. It really challenges our conventional understanding of water management.
And what about the public perception? I mean, the title of the video is super striking. It's bound to sway opinions even before one dives into the details.
For sure, the title grabs you immediately, almost like a scandal or a shock factor. It raises questions about government priorities and the socio-political dimensions of resource distribution.
And that's where I have to respectfully challenge one of your earlier points. You mentioned national pride and technological prowess. Isn't that sometimes used as a justification to mask deeper issues of misallocation?
That's a valid criticism. It could, in part, be a cover-up for inefficient management or a misdirected focus on high-visibility projects over sustainable, everyday solutions.
Right, yes.
The narrative can be spun either way, and it all comes back to transparency and long-term planning.
Exactly. It reminds me of how sometimes large projects are more about making headlines than about providing real, measurable benefits in the long run.
Precisely, and that's the core of the debate. Is this approach a visionary leap into future resource management, or is it a flashy, unsustainable diversion of water that will backfire eventually?
Oh yeah. It really highlights the paradox at the heart of managing resources in some of the world's most challenging environments.
Absolutely, and as the global water crisis looms closer, strategies like this will be scrutinized even more. There's a lot we can learn from such bold moves, even if they end up serving as cautionary tales.
Right, definitely. In the end, it comes down to a balance between ambition and sustainability, doesn't it? I mean, every drop counts in the bigger picture.
Yes, indeed. Every drop counts. It's like walking a tightrope between innovation and pragmatism. And as counterintuitive as it may seem to flood the desert with fresh water, it forces us to rethink our approach to water management in extreme climates.
Exactly. Well, that was an engaging dive into the complexities of water allocation in arid regions. It definitely leaves one pondering over what the future holds for such extreme strategies.
Absolutely, and it's the kind of conversation that makes you appreciate the intricate balance of nature and human ambition all at once. Thanks for the great discussion.